Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Blacklist. Another great episode. A lot of interesting things went down this episode, but I'll kind of break things down piece by piece. Obviously, it's focused on the main, well, really because there's two sides to this episode. One aspect deals with the Blacklist in this episode being a group known as the Travel Agency. Story took a direction I wasn't expecting it to, because obviously it's about an agency that was commissioned to take out certain people. I mean, it was never really shown like where this company lied, like whether it was like, it doesn't seem like it was government funded. It's just like, I guess it was a situation where people gathered and were like, okay, we're going to take advantage of things. We're going to take out this particular person, which is basically, I guess it was a whole profiting thing. I don't know. Like they took out big targets and kind of smaller targets. I don't know. It's really hard to say like what their grand motives was. I don't think they really explain like how the whole operation worked. Like whether it was like, originally was it something government funded? It's just something these guys started in their spare time. Like what was the purpose of it? I'm sure like they made like a lot of money off of it doing what they did. Well, it's probably like no, I forgot. It's like a commission thing. They were assassins for hire. Like, oh, you need someone dead for whatever reason. We got it. I forgot about that. Never mind. So completely ignore what I just said. But, the interesting thing about this episode was it dealt with actually the travel agency being bumped off. And I was like, the people associated with the travel agency were dying like one by one. In particular, the assassin in this episode, his name ended up being Calvin Dawson, which is so interesting, like how he went about it, like going into his trunk and pulling out like a gun and just taking him out from afar like that. I was like, that was kind of pretty interesting. It was just an interesting way of handling it. And first, whatever, I guess because the era it kind of deals with, it kind of reminded me of The Americans. If you've ever watched that show, you should watch it. It's a really good show. Granted, I need to catch up. I'm like super far behind on it. I think I got like near the end of season 2 before I just like fell super far behind. But nevertheless, that's neither here nor there. Because I was wondering how this all tied in with that beginning. Like, I was like, oh, wait, it's repeating, especially throughout the episode, kept repeating as like the same conversations with his wife, Eleanor. I was like, what is going on here? And it turns out also because like he got beat up and he had a brain injury. So basically his long-term memory is still somewhat intact, but basically the past 30 years doesn't stick in his memory. And it's like, he doesn't remember it. And it's like, it's kind of ingenious that basically his wife figured out what he did. Over the years, she basically unraveled everything, figuring out the whole travel agency, that her husband, in her words, a monster, which rightfully so, who was hired to kill people. And so basically she's been systematically killing everyone associated with the travel agency for the purposes, because for her, it's about getting revenge. Because it's like, she brings up the fact is her husband, super lucky, because it's like, you don't remember everything you did, so you're not haunted by it, but she's haunted by everything, because it's like, she lived with him, she had no idea. She started a family with this guy, and he was an assassin. He would kill people and then come home, and it's just like, it made her, I'm sure she felt disgusted by that, like, that there's such a monster was right underneath her nose, and she didn't even know it. So basically, she wanted to destroy this whole system for multiple reasons. It really comes down to her daughters, because her daughters died because their dad, like, he brought them on a mission, which normally he would have been in and out, but this time, like, the guy knew he was coming and he got jumped. Basically, them being trapped in the car because they were only like 2 years old at the time, so they weren't really aware of like what to do in that situation. So they stayed in the car, and it was like, I really don't 100% understand, but from the way the mom was talking about it, it seemed like it was something very brutal how her little girl has died. And the only reason why, because she had like an appendix. She had to have a surgery for her appendix at the time because her appendix burst. So that's why that whole situation played out the way it did. So ultimately, she blames her husband, but also the agency, because the whole reason why he was in that position in the first place is because, for one, him being a piece of crap dad wanted to take his daughters on a like mission while he's going to kill somebody, like, oh, father of the year, but also the agency that hired him to kill people. It's like, for her, it's like two birds with one stone. You're a terrible person, and these are terrible people killing people, Some people being terrible, but other people just being innocent people. So this was all revenge for this grand system that ultimately led to her little girl's dying. So Liz tried to talk to her, but she's like, I'm a mom too. She's like, oh, you're a mom, so you'll understand it. The fact of the matter is, because as a mom, you would do anything for your children. So that's the main motive behind it. But I mean, like, that was impressive in the sense of like how she, like I said, systematically broke that down, back traced everything, figured out everyone associated with the travel agent. The only person that's still alive is that one dude, but I don't know if like where he stands in the grand scheme of things. I'm sure he's still going to go to jail for his part to play in that. it's not like this situation had a happy ending. She ended up shooting him, and obviously the cops ended up shooting her, so they both died. So for her, it's like no matter what, it wouldn't change anything. Like her being arrested wouldn't change all the people he's killed. It's not like he could really suffer for the ramifications for, because it's not like he'd remember everything he did, Obviously, certain aspects of his life are still intact, so he probably had memories of killings he committed before, that memory gap, but still, like, he wouldn't remember everything, the suffering of losing their children, because every day he'd wake up like, oh, how are the girls? It's like, oh, they already got picked up, And when you actually think about it, it's got to be super hard on the wife, Eleanor, too, to have to say that every morning for the past couple years, of just like, no, oh, the girls, systematically doing that. Like, it has to kill you a little inside. Maybe she was so focused on her goal, but that whole situation kind of put things in perspective for, Liz, because it made her decide, hey, Tom, let's get married, because it's like, let's just do it today, because it's basically a situation where I think it's like, in Liz's head, it's like, we're not guaranteed tomorrow. Plus, in her mind, she's like, I'm very lucky to have you in this particular situation and not some other monster. Tom's got his own issues, but he's not like a monster. He's a con artist and everything. That's kind of what his big deal was. He was kind of raised to be like that, but Tom is beyond that, so, which kind of plays a role in this episode, but I'll get to that soon enough. But, it's almost interesting too, because it's also kind of somewhat reflective of Liz's whole situation, because it's like having a quote unquote monster for a dad is like your dad being read like one of the biggest criminals out there in the world, especially now because he's slowly building his business back up. But it's just kind of interesting. To a slight degree, there are similarities in that regard. But like I said, ultimately, it was just a situation of like, I'm lucky to have you and not some other person, Those kids were super young, so obviously it hits her even closer to home as a mom, because Agnes is probably not as old as they were. Like I said, they were like 2, so Agnes is like probably 1 or ish. So it's kind of like, it still hits her in that regard, so. Which is kind of nice that they get, married, because obviously, as we know from season 3, their wedding did not go as planned, mainly because of, a combination of Susan Hargrave as well as Solomon that led to their wedding not being super good. So at least this way is not a big wedding. Not everyone was invited, but I guess it kind of makes up for the fact is that, their other wedding was kind of shit. And in actuality, I guess in a way it makes up for it, because it's like, well, your friends and everyone that was family to you was there at the time. I mean, granted, their memories of that special moment of yours is ruined because said event was, shit, because of said attack by Solomon and Susan Hargrave. But nevertheless, the other thing I was going to get into about this episode was the whole situation of Tom and Red talking. Tom's not backing down with this whole situation. It's because it's like secrets. You cast a shadow, and he's trying to bring, Liz out into the light. He knows, like, it's like, me and you, we're so used to lying to people. And it's like, but he's like, for me, I'm not trying to live that life anymore. I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to do right by Liz. And, he knows Reddington loves her and cares for her, but it doesn't change the fact that it matters he's lying to her. He's keeping stuff from her. So he's trying to expose all that, because Kate gave him this opportunity, and it's like, she wanted this exposed, so it needs to be exposed. But for Red, it's like, the fact of the matter is Nick is dead because of this game you're doing right now. I get why you're doing it, but the fact of the matter is there are some skeletons that should stay buried. That was a body. Kate had no business doing what she did. I mean, did Kate ever think, I wondered, was that something, because Kate was kind of like the mastermind. She had a pretty big brain about this whole situation, but did she ever think that things would kind of unfold to this point? I mean, the fact of the matter is that she would let this happen anyway. Maybe she didn't think about, what would happen because of this whole Tom situation. Maybe, I mean, that's probably like a very unforeseen thing, but even if it was, maybe for her, it's like, no matter what the risk is, it's something that Liz needs to know. Don't know what it is, but I mean, it must definitely be some paramount to the point that Reddington wants it buried, like something that he says should have never seen the light of day. Because ultimately he's like, well, fine, this person, draw them out, I'll make a deal with them, and then basically I will kill them and then bury the body again. This particular body, not their body. I'm sure he'll still do that. But nevertheless. But like I said, Tom still isn't willing to back down. Lena, who is, that is Pete's sister, right? I forgot. I'm pretty sure that's his sister, but it's just, that was kind of interesting. I think that's the dynamic between them, because she ends up finding out from Tom this episode that basically his entire life is a lie. That basically he's a grifter. I mean, well, a con con artist. I don't know why I struggle with saying that, which is kind of interesting considering that's basically, like I said, I brought it up earlier. That's kind of what Tom kind of fills that role too. So, I mean, granted, he's changed and everything, which ultimately, like, you know, the guy that visited Lena threatening her, I don't think that was actually Pete. I do believe that he's on the run and whoever's trying to get this body, because apparently it's all for the purpose of trying to sell it to Reddington because they know how important it is to Reddington, because they know who the body is and they know the significance. Well, they might not know exactly who it is. You know, Pete being a con artist and everything, he was probably playing Tom and Nick, but then he found out, oh crap, like now, like I think, like I said, that whole situation, he has like a broken hand or something like that. So I don't think that's from killing Nick. Like I said, like from, I mean, granted, I don't remember exactly, but it don't seem like that was the person who killed Nick. Like I said, I think he's on the run himself, because Tom ends up figuring out that he's actually using Lena's information. And the guy was like, yeah, the warning didn't stick, so he's going to come after them. Not unless he, like, the fact is that he gave them a warning kind of makes me wonder about that. Like, who would give you a warning? Why not just kill Lena and make it easier? So either that was sent by Pete in some roundabout way to protect her, or that was from the other person who's just like, I'd rather not get all bloody, but if I need to. I mean, I don't think this all go back to Kirk. I mean, that's still a question we still haven't. I want to know what that answer is. Is it that he is like Liz's dad? Because we still don't have that answer of like, oh, why did Kirk leave? Was it that? Was it something else? Did he think he could use this as taking advantage against Reddington? Could it be something else? Could it actually be that her mom is actually still alive and this is her getting revenge? Or, you know, maybe this, like, what, like, that's the question. What would this body prove? Because once again, I don't think it's her mom. I think her mom, I don't know, maybe those situations like back in season 3 when he was like hallucinating that whole situation about her, Liz's mom, maybe that's guilt over the fact is that Liz was dead, like the last part of the woman that he loved and cared about was going to, so plus his own daughter. So there's that, but it's just like, I don't think it's her, but I think maybe it's key to proving that she's actually still alive, maybe in some weird way. I don't know. Because the way it's always been painted, because I feel like, once again, it's like, if she was alive, I feel like Kate would have said that directly or something. I don't know. Not unless it was something that Kate thought she knew everything, but she doesn't really know everything associated with that body. Maybe like legitimately, maybe there are some things that Reddington kept to himself, even though there's most things he kept. I mean, because the fact is, this was a buried secret that he didn't want anyone to know about, but Kate knew about it. So Kate probably knew everything, considering she did help him build his empire. So, like I said, it's just, I'm so curious to know what that whole thing's about, but nevertheless, I'm interested to see what goes down with Tom's side of things going forward, especially because we're heading more and more to that foreshadowing thing of like, oh, something's going to happen to Tom now that him and Liz are happy and getting married. So that's just going to complicate things even more. But another interesting side of this episode was Cooper. We saw him kind of going renegade in this episode because basically it deals with the son of a like good friend of Cooper's. His name is Isaiah Hill is the son's name. And basically he kind of got caught up in the drug world and everything like that. And he's in trouble. His mom's looking for him and everything. And Cooper wants to help out, as a family friend. Reddington ends up joining along, not necessarily because Cooper wanted him to, but, Reddington, took interest in it. He's like, wasn't doing anything else, essentially, so. But it turns out Isaiah is running from someone, in particular this guy named Zach Wilson. He witnessed a guy kill someone, and now it turns into the whole situation of, he didn't turn to the cops because we end up learning from Cooper what happened to his dad. That basically Isaiah's dad got killed by a cop. He was pulled over, something about, wasn't it like something with a license plate or something like that? But Isaiah's dad was like, no, that can't be right. And so he wasn't really following what the cop said. He was like, no, stop. But Isaiah was reaching for his wallet and the dude shot him 6 times. This cop got acquitted for the murder. And so because of that whole circumstances, Isaiah obviously wouldn't be too keen on cops. So that's why he didn't even turn to someone like Cooper, just because of that particular circumstance. And it's something that, Cooper kind of brings up himself. Like I said, it's kind of interesting seeing Cooper do what he did this episode, like knocking people out, blam, 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 shooting people, went all renegade, because it's like, right now, I don't have a badge. Which is so interesting in comparison to who Cooper is, because Cooper is like the one that's always like, hey, follow the law, do the right thing, especially because he's kind of given Liz that speech most recently about like, don't follow in your father's footsteps a little too much. You're a good FBI agent. Stay that way. It's always been a thing. Obviously, there's a little bit of a like, you're like, oh, that's a little contradictory considering the fact the matter is working with Reddington and everything in the first place, dealing with the devil, which is kind of weird to also say because it's not like Reddington's 100% the devil, because he's always got a scheme that you might not be 100% aware of. But he gets results, so he's like somewhat lesser of two evils considering he is kind of a greater evil in the grand scheme of things. But nevertheless, going back to it, like this whole because for Cooper, things are a little difficult, not just, not only because he's black, but also because he is a cop, because he's caught between those two worlds of representing, knowing like, yeah, things are very unjust because as someone who's black, he knows that the law doesn't always kind of smile in your favor. And then obviously the other side of him that he is a cop who's representing all cops, which he knows that not all cops are bad. And it's not like that. So it's like he's kind of divided in those two worlds. And so for him, that's why this whole situation he takes personal because because what happened to Isaiah's dad hit him on both fronts as both a black man as well as a cop. It hit him hard on both fronts. And Reddington kind of puts in perspective of like, hey, you have always been like a pillar of justice, essentially. And the fact of the matter, he's like, if I was in your situation, I would, where Isaiah's dad got 6, I would put 12 in the guy who did it to him, eat a rabbi, drink some champagne, move on with my day. He's like, yeah. So we're both understanding that. So he's like, I get it. But he's like, ultimately, that's me. That's because I'm me. You're a cop. The fact of the matter is the way the system is built, it's built to protect cops like you. So even if no matter how bad you do it, because this particular guy, Zach Wilson, is a scumbag, the law would not frown upon what you did. But ultimately, who would is yourself, because you, unlike me, have a conscience, which I think Reddington kind of sells himself a little short. He has a conscience, whether he wants to admit it or not, especially when it comes to Liz. He has a conscience. But that kind of put things in perspective for Harold, like I said, because he was willing to cross that line, but it put, because that is something that Harold probably wouldn't be, no, not probably, definitely wouldn't be able to live with himself about. I think another reason why he took a whole interest in Isaiah too is because it's something he brought up to Liz in the past. Like, he's always looked at Liz as kind of like a daughter because him and his wife don't have children. I actually don't remember. Dude, if you remember Clue Me In, did him and his wife ever make up? Like, there was that whole thing. Was that season 3 that happened? I think it was season 3 that there was bad blood between them. Or was that last season? Because the whole thing about her cheating and him not living at home. I want to say that might have been last season. I don't remember. I think they made up. I just can't quite remember. But nevertheless, ultimately Cooper didn't go down that path and ended up just arresting the dude. So helping out Isaiah, but it was something that he ended up pointing out to Isaiah. It's like he works as a cop to make sure that there is no injustice, that, what happens to his own dad, where like the FBI kind of was like, oh, try to paint his dad as being a bad man, even though his dad was fighting for civil rights back in the day. And what happened to, Isaiah's dad is like, he's there to make sure that equality is kept, that basically the FBI keeps on the up and up, that it doesn't, cross that line. Because it's like, if you, the whole aspect of, if you want to make change, you have to make the change yourself, kind of get involved, but, for him, making that sure that change stuck was to become part of the FBI. So I don't know, it was kind of nice getting to see that different side of Cooper. Also, just seeing kind of Cooper going out in the field. We don't see it too often. It happens every once in a while on the show. But just seeing the episode kind of follow him, especially him and Reddington kind of hanging out. Because they're kind of like, obviously, the two father figures in Liz's life. And it's also just the fact of the matter is that they are, opposites to each other, what they represent. One kind of being like all criminal bad guy chaos. The other one being like a pillar of, what justice is and should be, so. Like I said, overall, like a great episode with just every bit of the story tailored the way it was. One side had a happy ending. The whole Cooper side of things kind of had a happy ending. Obviously, the travel agency, I guess, depending on what, like, to me, looks like it kind of has like a kind of sad, shitty ending. But I guess in the grand scheme of things, it's still shitty, but there's some silver lining because the travel agency isn't a thing anymore, but it doesn't make it any crappier, any less crappy, So I'm very interested to see what goes down in the next episode with all of this, with the whole Lena and Tom and Pete situation. So, And especially now that, Reddington's, it's confirmed, like Tom now knows that Reddington knows about the body and everything and where that all takes them. So, but really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.